Hey guys, Omni here. New Rockstars dropped a video I honestly didn't expect them to cover, but they're doing a breakdown of all the clues and details you missed, as well as an ending explained for Squid Game. If you haven't been following the channel for the last couple of days, just finished all my reactions to every episode of the series. You can check them out. They're all up right now, and I was blown away by the show. I absolutely fell in love with it. I wasn't sure I was going to, get as invested as I did with it. I did the first episode as kind of a test because I just had a bunch of people asking if I was going to check out the show. Other people started spreading the word around, and I was like, okay, I'll at least give it a chance. And from that first moment, I just got sucked right into it. I tried to keep it to one a day, but after promising myself I'd take the weekend off to myself, I didn't, and finished the show and edited all the reactions to the remainder of it that weekend and that Monday. So I really got sucked into it to the point where I was like, okay, I just need to get through this. I was so afraid of getting spoilers and stuff like that. So if you haven't watched it, I don't recommend sticking around for this video because obviously there's going to be spoilers and there's some twists and turns in this show that I definitely I want you guys, if it's your first time diving into it, to have a lot of that experience as pure as possible. But guys, as always, you guys know my favorite breakdown channel is New Rockstars. I think that team over there does a fantastic job at putting these videos together and finding all these hidden clues and sometimes some fun speculation here and there. A little bit of some stretching, of course, but at times. But I'm excited. I didn't expect them to cover this at all. But who knows? Maybe they were pestered just as much as everybody else has been. But guys, if you're not checking them out, if you haven't subscribed to New Rockstars, go check them out. We're going to go ahead and dive into this video.
Welcome back to New Rockstars. I'm Eric Voss, and Squid Game on Netflix is a shocking social experiment and devilishly crafted mystery, well deserving of its meteoric popularity, at least for the way this show made me feel all the feels.
Oh God. Oh no. Stop running. Don't do this. No, Jesus. I can't do this.
And I cannot believe I cried over that man. This final reveal was so well set up with a sequence of clues throughout each episode. And while I normally apply my breakdown skills to Marvel titles, I just have to break down every interesting clue that you might have missed in Squid Game. So this series follows Kyun and other debtors participating in a violent survivor challenge for cash based on children's games: red light, green light, honeycomb, tug of war, marbles, hopscotch, and the Squid Game. Their dormitory walls actually display each of these games from the very beginning, barely visible in episode 1, but as each stack of bunks are removed as people are killed off,
I found that out well after the fact.
Revealed. Now, early on, Kyun meets Il-nam, an elderly player with a brain tumor who, as we learned in the final episode, was actually the creator of the game. Bored with watching alongside elite VIP gamblers who bet on these players like the horses Kyun would bet on, and so Il-nam joined the game to make the most of his dying months and finally found a friend in Kyun. He fakes his death during the heartbreaking marbles challenge, setting up Kyun to win it all. And it ends with Kyun debating Il-nam on his deathbed about the core morality of society, using a dying homeless man outside as a test case for whether anyone would stop to help him by midnight, which I actually see is pretty similar to the final act of The Dark Knight. Batman and Joker using the fairies as a microcosm of society's selfishness or
it's a
selflessness.
good parallel.
And in the end of both, thank goodness, humanity steps up. Now, Il-nam being behind it all was actually foreshadowed in several subtle ways. Like all the way back in episode 1, when Kyun first meets him, he's counting the number of other players, which he claims was suggested by his doctors to help with his dementia, but Kyun naively points to the screen listing the total number, and Il-nam just looks at him like, doy.
영감님, 저기 456명 왔네요.
And that is because Il-nam was actually sizing up each of the candidates, and he's genuinely kind of annoyed that Kyun is bothering him.
영감님 1등으로 오셨네? 나 꼴찌네?
나도 알아.
Throughout the games, while other players are terrified, Il-nam is gleeful. And red light, green light, after the first wave of slaughtering,
That was the
he
first
happily strides
thing that
forward,
set
and when
my
he freezes
suspicion
on the motion sensor
off.
screen, all other players are lit with a full green overlay, whereas he only has a bit of green highlighting, no overlay, showing how the sensor sees him differently. In the protest vote, Il-nam votes
Yeah, I didn't
last,
notice that
voting
the
to
first
end
time
the
through.
game, which he does to free himself of guilt and ensure that everyone who returns to play does so under their own free will. Basically his own sick justification for going forward with this. Il-nam runs into Gi-yeon outside the store in episode 2.
나 다시 가기로 했어.
어딜요?
Yeah, no answer to that question. Il-nam leaves it unsaid because he doesn't want to tell Gi-yeon where the island is, or even say out loud in a public place that there exists this battle royale island with murder games. Also notice that while we see every other major character get gassed as they sit in the van to return to the game, we do not see any gas clouding around Il-nam, since he would have known the way. Gassing him would have been unnecessary. Now, despite Il-nam's elite status, he was fully prepared
Didn't
to
notice
die
that one.
in each of the games. He wasn't really rigging them for himself. And that's because the whole heartless fairness of it is what made it fun for him. He was gonna die anyway because of his tumor. Like in the honeycomb challenge, he straight up picked one of the more challenging star shapes.
아니야, 별 좋아. 요즘은 별 보기가 힘든 세상 아닌가?
And only by copying Gi-yeon licking the back did he succeed. It was his friendship that he discovered with Gi-yeon that made him want to keep moving forward. In episode 4, the nighttime brawl only ends when Il-nam cries out.
제발 그만해.
This was one of those other moments where I was like, little convenient, right? But they did such a good job. Like every time I felt suspicious, which like episode 1 and then this moment in particular, and a couple others here and there, they did such a good job at just veering me away from that path and sowing seeds of doubt. Like even though like I thought it was off, thought it was weird, thought it was suspicious, especially him finding Gi-yeon so conveniently, there was always these moments that paralleled that to offset a lot of my suspicion. And to the end, like until that final couple of moments, until the final, like we saw over the shoulder, you know, just the hands, the back of the head or whatever of the owl masked man, I was like, okay, that's who it's got to be, right? So it's just like going back and seeing like there's even more clues that I didn't even pick up, and a lot of people had mentioned a lot of these that have been floating around in the ether.
And then only then does the front man send the guards in. Which brings us to the tug of war challenge. And of course, Il-nam knows a pretty solid strategy. And when they first pull back to tug, he's actually got a big smile on his face. But Il-nam was actually very close to death here. I actually checked, he really was chained to the rope like the others were, but only thanks to Sung-woo's last minute tactic to step forward and make the other side lose their footing were they able to win. And then right afterwards, while the others look exhausted and relieved, Il-nam again has a big smile on his face. Now, episode 5 is when the police officer Jun-ho finds the player records, and when he looks at a past year, there is a page for player 1 and player 2 of that year, but when he pulls the current year of 2020, the very first page shows player 002. There is no record for 001, since Il-nam, as a game creator, would not need a player record. Now, in episode 6, Gi-yeon gives Il-nam his jacket to cover his soiled pants, and Il-nam later gives him his 001 jacket.
이 옷 입고 가. 이 도시 없으면은 사람들이 자네를 우습게 볼 거야.
His way of telling Gi-yeon that the guards look up to player 001, and this marks Gi-yeon for safer passage heading into the final challenges. Now, during the marble game, the set perfectly recreates Il-nam's old home, which they would only be able to do if he had a hand in designing it. And he says,
내가 퇴근하고 집에 오면은 아들놈이
Yeah, I thought that was odd too, but then I started to just equate it to his dementia. Until he revealed he was aware of what had been going on.
걸 몰래 훔쳐봤지.
telling us how Il-nam created all of this as a way to watch people play the games that his son played, that he always wished he played with his son. And this building looks like it has a kind of interior, giving Il-nam plenty of places to hide to fake his death. Indeed, when he loses his marbles, the guard gunshot happens behind the pillar. We hear the gunshot, but no sound of a body hitting the ground. And on the final shot, despite everywhere else strewn with corpses, no body or blood can be seen in the courtyard that we were just in. Now, as we head into the final episodes, each major character's death was actually foreshadowed by their decisions back in episode 2. Like Ali stole
some people had
the money
pointed
from
that
his
out in the
boss and left
comments.
him with his hand disfigured just like his own. And then later in the marble challenge, Song-woo steals the marbles from him. Deok-soo jumped off the bridge to escape his enemies, and later, Min-yo forces him into a death fall from the glass bridge. Se-byuk pressed a knife against her broker's neck, and she is later killed by Song-woo slitting her
spot.
throat. And Song-woo nearly committed suicide in his bathtub, and then later kills himself to let Gi-yeon win. Now, this all began with Gi-yeon being offered red or blue in the train station. Gi-yeon chose blue, and actually later when the guards expose all of their debts, it looks like most of the other players there also chose blue. And this might be a clue for how the organization recruits these poor people. Blue for players of the game, whom they dress in turquoise. Red for how they recruit the oppressive guards, who are dressed in red. And you'll notice that in the final minutes, Gi-yeon has dyed his hair red and spots that recruiter again, targeting a new candidate who also chose blue. Now, he ends up taking that card from the guy and calls it, and the respondent knows that he is about to board a flight, proving that they are still watching him, but he is now marked in red, and he takes on the role of the aggressor to burn it all down. I loved this series so much. It's gonna like stay with me for a long time.
Yeah,
but if you're new to
man.
this channel, thank you so much for watching us. New Rockstars breaks down the details you missed with in-depth analyses of everything you love, from Marvel, Star Wars to horror films. So subscribe for more content like this, and you can support us
I
by
highly
checking out our great
recommend
merch
these
options
guys,
at
man.
newrockstarsmerch.com.
As
You
I
can
always
follow me on
say and
Instagram
do.
Twitter at EAVoss. Follow and subscribe to New Rock.
But yeah, man, it's just like there's so much in the show that was just really, really well written and well thought out. And I know the ending is kind of divisive for a lot of people, and I understand that for sure. I was definitely not too certain about my feelings at the time, especially during the reaction about what was going on, or the approach, but I definitely get it now. And I just like seeing how they kind of played back on all these things, and like it's like these small details that when you're in the moment, it's hard to pick up on a lot of that stuff. Like I definitely did not catch the scanner on the red light green light game at all, or the page numbers from the record room, none of that stuff. And I admit, like I didn't even like realize until so many of those beds had gone that the walls were painted with the games they would be playing. It's just like a huge puzzle piece. It's just like, I loved it. This, from the production design, the set design, the writing, the performances were just intoxicating to watch. And like it ran me through the entire gamut of feelings going through the show. And like there's like points where I got so worked up in what I was watching, and not because it was gross or anything like that, but just from the rush of emotions. I got physically sick to my stomach a few times just from how it was affecting me, man. I had to take multiple breaks between some of my recordings. If you haven't checked it out and you're here, I mean, you spoiled like a couple of major things in here, but the ride is still worth the trip, and I definitely recommend it. And also, don't watch the English dub, please. Anyway, guys, what did you think of this breakdown? Was there anything that Eric missed? Sound off the comments. Let me know your thoughts down below. We'll carry on the conversation after the video, as always. Thank you guys so much for tuning in and supporting. come hang out in their Discord. I got a link to that and all my socials down in the description down below. But before we go, I want to shout out our channel legends, Mandy Sherritt, Ryan Karen, Jason Coleman, Philly Vane, Yuri Korskov, Margaret Grace, Peelings M, and Mary Bradley. Thank you guys so much for your support. And guys, if you haven't seen my reactions to any of the episodes of Squid Game, I've got 1 through 9 on the channel now, so you can check out the entire journey. But guys, that's it for now, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Take care, everybody.